wow, this really wasn't written last year. Huh. Time to do a bit more big finish. Before I get into this, first, I gotta do a shout out to a patron because I've got some really awesome Patreon supporters. And in this particular case, I want to give a shout out to Amelia Pond's grandfather. And I'm not even really kidding. I have a patron who has a granddaughter named Amelia Pond. And she has a 6-year-old brother who wears bow ties. You know, the family that watches Doctor Who together just is awesome together. Man, I love my patrons. Anyways, so let's get to this. The Fearmonger. So this is a audio adventure for the 7th Doctor and Ace, Sophie Allred. And Ace is, you know, the iconic companion for the 7th Doctor. So getting her back and having her revive this part, that's just a great gig because she's always been great in this part. Now, as I've been trying to do with the big finish, I'm going to do I'm pretty sure I can talk about this without getting into spoilers. I'm going to talk about some stuff and some specific that goes on primarily in the first episode. So I'd like to think that's not too spoilery, talking about some of the stuff that's in the first of 4 episodes, but even that I'll hold off of because, like I said, I don't expect people will have all heard this the way that I can count on folks having seen the episode. So the Fearmonger is set in near future Britain, and it is dealing with the rise of a far-right political group calling themselves New Britannia. And they are, you know, coming to power. They're holding rallies. They have a very England first perspective. They're against the United Nations. They're against Europe. They really want to cut England off from that. There's a lot of talk about you know, immigrants and the others and them, and there's xenophobia and all this stuff worked into it. And there's something that is feeding off of the fear that is being generated by everything that's going on between the rise of this party, people who are afraid of them, people who are fighting back against them, to the point that some people are in fact prepared to try and assassinate the leader of this party. And the Doctor is here because, as I said, there is something that is just feeding off all this. And the whole situation threatens to just boil over into a disaster. And that's about as far into the starting premise as I think I can get. And if you were wondering what I meant with that sort of opening intro bit, this feels like it could have been done last year in response to Brexit. But it was made in 2000. Which is crazy. I don't know if anyone has revisited I don't know what folks thought about it when it came out. And I don't know what people would think about it listening to it now. I don't know if anyone's revisited it lately. I'd actually be really interested to hear in the comments from any fans who remember their thoughts on this when it originally came out or what they think of it now. But I tell you, it is pointed. And it feels, at this point, prophetic, even. And it gives it, I suspect, I mean, I know obviously more about the American political climate than the British one, so I don't know if there was a kind of a rise of this sort of thing at the time this was made. But, you know, from my understanding of certainly what's going on now, it feels like it was made in response to what's going on right now, not 18 years ago. That whole thing is crazy, and it has a level of resonance that it may not have even had when it first got released. In terms of what I would consider to be minorly spoilery on the front end, and again, this is talked about in the very first episode of the 4 that make this up. And initially, I was very skeptical when we find out that there is some sort of outside force that the Doctor refers to as the Fearmonger that is sort of feeding into and feeding off of the situation. And initially when that got introduced, I felt disappointed because I had hoped that the Doctor was just going to be dealing with a mess of human beings making. And part of me got worried that the whole message of the danger of, fearful political tactics and then the counter moves that happen from that and then the counters to the counters and just how everything escalates, spirals out of control, would lose some of its impact when basically people who don't want to have to think too hard about how that applies to the real world can basically go, oh, well, there was an alien doing it, so I don't have to worry about that. Except I actually think that the show gets around that about as well as you can if you're not going to do it straight and you are going to introduce an outside force, which is that, well, first of all, it's brought up, as I said, early. So it's not like that was revealed as a twist. If we had gone, say, 3 episodes of just dealing with humans making the situation worse to be revealed in the 4th episode, oh, there's this alien pulling strings, that would have been awful. But even beyond that, it's the fact that while the Fearmonger is a problem and it's making the situation worse, it's not controlling people. It's just taking advantage of what's going on. Everything that's done, every action, every reaction, it's just people. It's people being scared and being stupid. And that is made pretty clear at a number of points throughout the story. And that's good because without making that clear, like I said, the sort of the cop out of, oh, I don't need to think about what this episode is actually saying because, it's about an alien messing with people. I don't have to worry about that. And it does a pretty good job of not letting you get away with that excuse. So it really is very well done in terms of the escalation and laying out the blame for all parties. It would have been really easy to create just a straw man, ultra-conservative group or individual to just pile on. But there are very pointed comments being made about them, about, the counterpoint political view, about entertainment pundits who are just that, who are entertainers, but pass themselves off as being political and who have an impact on the political field, even though they claim to only be entertainers when pressed on it. And it has pointed things to say about opposition groups. There's plenty of blame for the situation to go around, but not in it's a little bit everybody's fault, because the fault is people not thinking about the consequences of what it is that they're doing, and usually just reacting out of fear. So that is the consistent problem, and that is a problem regardless of what your political stance is. That behavior is the problem. So I think it works because it shows that behavior is not unique to any political stripe. And I think that was a good way to go about it. And they take good advantage of the audio medium with this, because they've got sort of this recurring radio talk show that pops up every now and then, and it allows for a number of things, for some interesting ways that characters end up communicating with each other, which is kind of cool. And also it becomes a good way to have, expositional news flash dumps kind of things happen, and all that works pretty seamlessly. The acting is really good in this, and Sylvester McCoy, I did like him as the 7th Doctor, but Sophie Allred as Ace makes him better. Their dynamic, their chemistry, what they bring out of each other as performances and as characters makes both of them better. So having them both here is really awesome. And Sophie Allred, I think I've only seen to date 3 stories that have Ace in them, and she's always been good and I've always liked her, but I feel like I get a much better sense of her as a character and a sense of what she is capable of and her potential and what the Doctor sees in her and what she brings out of him in this audio than I think I really got out of any of the other episodes. And again, all the episodes I've seen her in of the show proper were good and she was good in them, but this just feels like it's an even better showcase for her than any of the episodes that I saw. The supporting cast is all good. The woman running for office, who's sort of the head of this conservative group, she's really good because she gets humanized, but not in a way that feels manipulative, just in a very matter-of-fact way, just by having her have interactions and having her express emotions that feel very human, so that even if you vehemently disagree with her politics, she doesn't come across as, you know, this sort of mustache tour, like, and I shall now close the children's orphanage, those freeloading welfare queens kind of way, which would have been the, you know, again, the cop-out way to do it. I feel like this story is tackling stuff that would have been really easy to take an easy route on, to take a safe route, to take a punching down approach, but it's not. It's all handled pretty thoughtfully and pretty even-handedly and pretty, at this point, certainly with what's happened since it was released, frighteningly believably. So I think that's really all I can talk about without getting into spoilers. I'm not sure any of the spoilers that I could talk about are worth getting into. I'm not sure I have anything to say that's really beyond too much of what I've said here. It's a great cast. It's a good story. It's phenomenally executed, and it is shockingly relevant. And every now and then you just come across a piece of media, you know, written and made years ago, and you read it, and it's about, you know, some issue, and you read it or you hear it or you see it, and it just immediately sinks in like, oh my God, this feels like this could have been written right now because this issue is still going on. There was a play I did a staged reading for about, I guess would have been about 3 years ago now. A play called Trouble in Mind, written by a woman named Alice Childress, and it's looking at relationships and understandings and misunderstandings and misperceptions and prejudices between people that all felt shockingly relevant. And I knew when the thing was set, but it felt like something written in the last 10 years that was just set in the 50s. And then as we were going through the rehearsal process, and the director told me, no, this was actually written in 1955 when it was set. And hearing that just blew my mind, because like, crap, things haven't gotten better. And I had that same feeling hearing this audio and going, God, it's 18 years later, and this feels possibly even more relevant now than it would have at the time. And I think that makes it more powerful and makes it all the more worth listening to. And it's a good Doctor Who story besides. It's the least fantastical of the ones that I've listened to so far. It's set on Earth. It's set in the future technically, but it's in the pretty near future. So it's all a lot more grounded. It's all a lot more believable. There's a lot less just fantastical elements in it. But it just works, especially for the story that it's telling and the points that it's making. I thought this was a terrific piece of work. And with a ton of great touches too. I mean, especially if you know Doctor Who history, there's some fun ways in which the Doctor's history with UNIT sort of plays into the story a little bit. And just a lot of awesome stuff to watch out for. And he's great, and Sophie Allred's amazing. And I loved this. Those are my thoughts on The Fearmonger. I have no idea if this is a particularly well-regarded audio or not, but it should be. At least as far as I'm concerned. So, have you heard it? What do you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. There's all that stuff you can do. Things like support me on Patreon, follow me on Twitter, listen to my podcast. Links for all that stuff is down in the description. So, until next time, this council is adjourned.